Ladies and gentlemen, toxic people don't want your love, your loyalty, or even your respect. They want your control. They want to own your choices, dictate your emotions, and decide who you are allowed to become. And the harsh truth is this: the only reason they succeed is because you hand them the power. But what happens when you decide, today, that their grip is over? What happens when you take back what was always yours? That's when everything changes. Toxic people love control. They crave it. They thrive on it. For them, control is power, and they will do whatever it takes to keep you under their influence. They will manipulate you, guilt-trip you, belittle you, flatter you, and then tear you down. They will convince you that you're not capable without them, that you're too weak, too flawed, too broken to stand on your own, and once they have you believing that, they own you. But here's the truth: no one owns you. No one gets to dictate who you are, what you can achieve, or how you live your life. The control they cling to only exists because you allow it. You can take it back. Toxic people build their power on illusion. They create narratives where they are always right, where your worth is tied to their approval, where you owe them something. They'll say things like, "You need me," or "Without me, you'd be nothing." They might not use those exact words, but their actions, their tone, the subtle digs, they all send the same message. And the longer you accept it, the stronger their grip becomes. But you are not powerless. You've simply been convinced to forget your own strength. Control doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you. Understand this: toxic people prey on doubt. The moment you question yourself, they swoop in with their certainty. They act as though they know better, as though they have the answers you don't. And when you give in to that performance, you hand them the reins. But their certainty is a mask. It's not strength. It's insecurity dressed up in arrogance. Truly strong people don't need to control others. They empower them. Toxic people control because deep down, they fear they aren't enough. And if you can see through that act, you begin to reclaim your power. Taking your control back starts with boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They're declarations of self-respect. They're you saying, "This is where I end and you begin." Toxic people will test those boundaries. They'll push against them, mock them, accuse you of being selfish or cold. That's their strategy, because boundaries limit their control. But hold the line. Every time you enforce a boundary, you strengthen your resolve. You remind yourself and them that you are not theirs to manipulate. It's not easy. Don't expect toxic people to back down gracefully. When you pull away from their control, they will fight harder. They will escalate. They'll try to guilt you, paint you as the villain, spread lies about you, or try to win you back with false kindness. This is part of the cycle. But remember, their resistance is proof that you're doing the right thing. If they weren't losing control, they wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep it. Taking back control also means mastering your emotional responses. Toxic people feed off reaction. They poke at your insecurities, push your buttons, and wait for you to explode or collapse. That reaction gives them confirmation that they can still reach inside your mind and pull the strings. But when you learn to control your response, when you stop giving them the drama they crave, you starve them. You show them that their tactics no longer work. And that is one of the most powerful ways to break free. There's also a choice you have to make. Are you willing to walk away? Sometimes the only way to take your power back is to remove yourself completely. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to see that some battles aren't worth fighting and some environments are too toxic to heal in. Walking away doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you someone who values your peace more than someone else's chaos. And peace is where real strength grows. But walking away, setting boundaries, reclaiming your emotional space, none of it works if you don't first shift your mindset. You have to decide that your worth is not up for debate. Toxic people will try to convince you otherwise, but they don't get a vote. Your value is not determined by their approval, their affection, or their presence in your life. It is determined by the way you choose to see yourself and the way you choose to stand up for yourself. When you stop asking them for validation, you take away their power. Here's the reality. Control is only effective if you participate in it. If you buy into their games, if you keep giving them the reactions, if you believe their lies about you, then yes, they'll control you. But the moment you stop playing along, the illusion cracks. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to convince them. You don't need them to understand your worth. You only need to understand it yourself. Taking back control is about reclaiming your voice. Toxic people love to silence you. They interrupt, they talk over you, they dismiss your opinions. They'll make you second-guess your memory, your feelings, your instincts. It's called gaslighting, and it's one of their favorite tools. But when you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, you reassert your presence. You remind yourself that your perspective is valid, your feelings are real, and your experiences matter. You also have to surround yourself with people who reinforce your strength instead of undermining it. Toxic people want you isolated, because when you're isolated, you're easier to control. But when you connect with people who respect you, uplift you, and encourage you, you see yourself through a different lens. You begin to remember who you are, and that reminder makes it harder for toxic voices to dominate your mind. Control is a game toxic people play, but it's not one you have to participate in. Their entire strategy depends on your cooperation. Without it, they have nothing. Remember that the greatest form of power you have is choice. You can choose how you respond. You can choose who you allow into your space. You can choose whether or not you engage in their chaos. And every choice you make in your own favor weakens their hold. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving anything to them. It's about choosing yourself. Because once you choose yourself, once you decide that your peace, your dignity, and your self-respect matter more than their approval, the game is over. Control can only exist where permission is granted. Stop granting it. The moment you stop, you reclaim your freedom. You reclaim your life. And that is something no toxic person can ever take back from you. And once you reclaim your life, you start to see everything differently. You notice how many moments you gave away, how much time you lost worrying about their moods, their opinions, their approval. You recognize the energy you spent explaining yourself, apologizing for things that weren't your fault, carrying the weight of their insecurities. It hits you that all along, they were never holding you. You were holding yourself in place by believing their story about you. The moment you stop believing it, the chains dissolve. Toxic people want you to forget who you are because the moment you remember, their power evaporates. They want you distracted, second-guessing, doubting. They want you too exhausted to stand up, too insecure to leave, too wrapped up in their drama to focus on your own growth. That's the formula they use to stay in control. Keep you small, keep you quiet, keep you dependent. But you are not small. You are not quiet, and you are not dependent. Deep down, you already know this because if you didn't, their behavior wouldn't sting so much. It hurts precisely because it goes against what you know you deserve. Taking back control is about aligning your actions with that truth. If you know you deserve respect, then you cannot continue accepting disrespect. If you know you deserve honesty, then you cannot keep tolerating lies. If you know you deserve peace, then you cannot remain where chaos reigns. It's not enough to know it. You must act on it. And when you do, something powerful happens. Your self-trust begins to rebuild. Every time you enforce a boundary, every time you refuse to engage in their manipulation, every time you walk away from a trap they set, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. That trust is the foundation of freedom. Toxic people despise self-trust because it makes you untouchable. They rely on your doubt, on your need for reassurance. If you no longer need their validation, they lose their grip. That's why they'll fight so hard to pull you back in the moment you start pulling away. They'll apologize without meaning it, promise change they never intend to deliver, love bomb you with attention, gifts, or praise. It's not real. It's bait. Their goal isn't to change, it's to reset the cycle so they can regain control. Recognize the pattern for what it is, and you stop falling for it. You might ask yourself, why do they do it? Why do toxic people crave control so much? The answer is simple. It makes them feel powerful. It covers up their own insecurities, their own lack of self-worth. When they control others, they can avoid confronting themselves. They can pretend they're strong when in reality they're terrified of being powerless. Their control isn't about you, it's about them. And the moment you see that clearly, you stop taking their behavior personally. You stop seeing their criticism as truth, their judgment as authority, their manipulation as cleverness. You see it for what it is. Desperation disguised as dominance. Taking your power back doesn't. to mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means you become clear. It means you refuse to waste your compassion on people who weaponize it. It means you reserve your loyalty for those who deserve it, not those who demand it. It means you shift from reacting to directing, from living on their terms to living on yours. Clarity gives you the courage to step away, even when it hurts, even when they try to convince you that you'll regret it. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. There will be moments when their voice lingers in your head, whispering that maybe you're the problem, maybe you're too harsh, maybe you're overreacting. That's part of the aftermath of control. They conditioned you to believe you were at fault because blame was their weapon. But here's the truth. Accountability is not the same as blame. You can take accountability for your choices, like staying too long, ignoring red flags, or silencing your instincts without blaming yourself for their toxicity. Their choices are theirs. Your choices are yours. And now, your choice is to take your control back. Reclaiming control also means reclaiming your narrative. Toxic people are storytellers. They spin tales where they are the hero and you are the problem. They twist facts, exaggerate flaws, minimize your strengths. They'll tell others a version of you that is distorted, hoping to damage your reputation and isolate you. But their version doesn't matter. What matters is the story you tell yourself. If you keep repeating their script in your mind, you keep living in their world. Rewrite the script. Tell yourself the truth. You are capable. You are worthy. You are free. Speak it until you believe it, because your mind listens to what you repeat. When you take your control back, you also gain perspective. You start to see how many other people are trapped in similar dynamics, how common manipulation is, how subtle control can look. You realize that by standing firm, by refusing to be controlled, you're not only freeing yourself, you're setting an example. You're showing others what it looks like to rise, to refuse, to choose differently. That ripple effect is powerful. One person breaking free gives courage to another, and then another. Your courage becomes contagious. But make no mistake, courage requires consistency. Taking back control isn't a single decision, it's a daily practice. Every day you'll face moments where you can slip back into old patterns, moments where it's easier to give in than to stand up. That's when you remind yourself why you started. That's when you remind yourself of the nights you cried yourself to sleep, of the mornings you woke up dreading their mood, of the way it felt to live in constant tension. You remind yourself that no temporary comfort is worth permanent submission, and then you choose strength again. You will find that life opens up once control is gone. The space that used to be filled with their drama, their criticism, their noise, it becomes space for growth. You'll have energy again, creativity again, peace again. You'll remember what it feels like to laugh without looking over your shoulder, to dream without someone telling you it's impossible, to succeed without someone trying to cut you down. That freedom is your birthright, and it only feels foreign because you've lived without it for so long. The key is to protect it once you have it. Toxic people may try to re-enter your life, disguised as change, disguised as remorse. Don't let nostalgia blind you to reality. Remember, people don't change because they say they will. They change because they take action consistently over time. Watch what they do, not what they promise. And even if they do change, you are under no obligation to let them back into your life. Forgiveness is optional, reconciliation is optional, boundaries are not. Protect your peace the way they protected their control, with Vigila. And while you protect it, pour your energy into building the life they tried to keep you from. Pursue the goals they mocked. Strengthen the relationships they tried to sabotage. Develop the skills they said you couldn't master. Every step forward is proof that their control was never real power. It was borrowed, and you've taken it back. As you rise, you will encounter new people, new opportunities, new challenges. Not everyone you meet will be toxic, but some will be. That's why awareness is crucial. Once you've experienced control, you learn to spot the signs, the subtle manipulation, the backhanded compliments, the pressure to shrink yourself. The difference now is that you won't ignore them. You won't explain them away. You'll see them for what they are, and you'll shut them down before they take root. That is the gift of experience. Once you've been controlled and broken free, you know how to guard your freedom. Freedom doesn't mean life will be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, heartbreak, or betrayal again, but it does mean you will face them from a place of strength, not submission. It means that no matter what happens, you won't hand your power away to someone who doesn't deserve it. You'll navigate life on your terms, not theirs. And that is the greatest victory you can claim, not to dominate others, but to refuse domination, to stand as the sole authority of your own life. And when you stand as the authority of your own life, something shifts deep within you. You stop asking for permission to be who you are. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. That's the real power toxic people never wanted you to discover. That your freedom doesn't come from them, and it never did. It comes from the decision to no longer let fear, guilt, or manipulation write your story. The world opens up when you stop living under control. Suddenly, the dreams you buried start to resurface. The goals you put aside because someone convinced you they were unrealistic begin to feel possible again. Toxic people love to keep you small because your growth threatens their control. If you rise, they lose their grip. If you succeed, they lose their leverage. So they downplay your ambitions, mock your ideas, remind you of every past mistake to keep you doubting. But once you take your control back, you begin to realize none of that was truth. It was strategy. Their strategy doesn't have to be your destiny. Taking control back means giving yourself permission to want more, want peace, want success, want love that doesn't hurt, friendships that don't drain, opportunities that expand you. It's not selfish to want those things. It's self-respect. Toxic people will tell you that you're greedy, ungrateful, or arrogant for reaching higher. That's because they benefit when you settle for less. But you were not born to settle. You were born to expand, to create, to become. Part of becoming means embracing discomfort. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires you to step outside the patterns that feel familiar, even if those patterns are destructive. It means saying no when you've always said yes. It means walking away when you've always stayed. It means speaking up when you've always kept quiet. Toxic people will see that shift and call it rebellion. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You've changed into someone they can no longer control, and that change is worth every ounce of discomfort it takes to achieve. You'll discover that power isn't loud. Toxic people make it seem like power is domination, shouting, intimidation. But true power is calm. It's the steady refusal to compromise your values. It's the quiet strength to walk away from disrespect. It's the unshakable confidence of knowing your worth without needing to prove it to anyone. When you reclaim your control, you carry that kind of power. It doesn't need to announce itself. It speaks in the way you move, the choices you make, the peace you protect. There will be people who don't understand your journey. They'll question why you cut ties, why you enforce boundaries, why you refuse to bend. They'll say you're being dramatic, difficult, or heartless. Some of them may be well-meaning, some may even be caught under the influence of the same toxic dynamics you've escaped. But remember this. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. Your life is not a courtroom where every decision requires a defense. The only verdict that matters is your own. Taking back control also teaches you the power of silence. Toxic people want reaction because reaction fuels their control. But silence, true, intentional silence, is a shield. It denies them the drama they crave. It tells them that their words no longer penetrate, their tactics no longer land. Silence is not weakness. It's discipline. It's choosing not to waste your energy where it won't be respected. Every time you choose silence instead of engaging in their chaos, you are conserving your strength for what truly matters. You will notice that when you stop feeding into their games, toxic people often reveal their true desperation. They'll escalate, switching tactics, trying harder to provoke you. They may attempt to lure you back with sudden kindness, promises of change, or even threats. These are signs of a drowning person reaching for anything to keep themselves afloat. But just because they're drowning doesn't mean you jump back into the water with them. You are not their lifeboat. You are not their anchor. You are responsible for saving yourself. As you grow stronger, you begin to realize that control was never just about them. It was also about the limits you placed on yourself. Toxic people only amplify the insecurities you already had. They magnify your doubts, exploit your fears. But those insecurities don't have to define you. Taking control back means confronting them head-on. It means doing the hard work of self-reflection, healing, and growth. It means asking yourself, where did I learn to doubt my worth? Why did I believe I had to settle? What within me allowed their voice to be louder than mine? And then it means doing the work to rebuild your foundation so no one can shake it again. That work is not easy. It requires courage to look at the wounds you've avoided. It requires patience to unlearn the habits of silence and compliance. It requires resilience to face setbacks without sliding back into old patterns. But every step you take strengthens you. Every time you choose self-respect over self-doubt, you reinforce the truth that you are in control. Toxic people may have written the first chapters of your story, but you hold the pen now, and you can write something entirely new. You'll find that control, once reclaimed, becomes a shield you carry into every aspect of your life. In your relationships, it helps you demand respect without apology. In your career, it pushes you to pursue opportunities you once believed were out of reach. In your personal growth, it fuels you to push past fear and step into your potential. The same control they tried to use against you becomes the force you use to propel yourself forward. With time, you'll begin to feel gratitude for the lessons, even if the pain still lingers. Because without their control, you may never have discovered the depth of your strength. Without the toxicity, you may never have recognized the value of peace. Without the manipulation, you may never have learned to trust your instincts so deeply. The very thing that tried to break you has become the fire that forged you. And now, nothing can make you forget what you've learned. Your life belongs to you, and no one else has the right to hold the steering wheel. That's the essence of taking your control back. It's not about punishing them, proving them wrong, or showing them what they lost. It's about showing yourself what you've gained. It's about building a life so strong, so aligned with your values, that their absence isn't a void. It's a blessing. It's about knowing that you no longer need to fight for their acceptance because you've already accepted yourself. And once you do that, their control becomes irrelevant, their tactics powerless, their presence unnecessary. This is the truth toxic people never wanted you to see. You were always stronger than their control. You were always capable of choosing differently. You were always worthy of more. The moment you claim that truth, you break free. And once you're free, nothing and no one can drag you back into chains unless you allow it. And you won't. Not anymore. And you won't. Because now you know what chains feel like, and you know what freedom feels like. And once you've tasted freedom, you'll never confuse the two again. You'll recognize control not as love, not as care, not as protection, but as what it really is: fear wrapped in authority, insecurity disguised as dominance. You'll see through it instantly, and instead of shrinking back, you'll stand taller. Because you've lived the difference. You've lived under the weight of their control, and you've lived in the strength of your own power, and there is no comparison. When you live in your power, your choices begin to shift. You start saying no without hesitation, and you stop apologizing for it. You stop feeling guilty for prioritizing your well-being. You stop making excuses for people who continuously show you who they are. The guilt that used to bind you no longer has a hold, because you finally understand that guilt was the weapon they used to keep you compliant. But guilt loses its bite when you realize it was never about your wrongdoing. It was about their need for leverage. Once you strip that away, what's left is clarity. And clarity is freedom. Clarity lets you see patterns that were once invisible. You start to notice how control shows up in subtle ways. In the colleague who dismisses your ideas until someone else repeats them. In the friend who only calls when they need something. In the partner who praises you one moment and undermines you the next. Before, you may have brushed these moments off. You may have minimized them, made excuses, convinced yourself it wasn't that bad. But now you can't unsee it. Now you know what control feels like, and you won't tolerate it again. You won't let small manipulations grow into cages. You'll cut them off before they root themselves into your life. That's what reclaiming control does. It heightens your awareness. And with awareness comes choice. No longer are you at the mercy of someone else's agenda. No longer are you drifting through life, reacting to their moods, their demands, their judgment. You're awake now. You choose who gets access to your energy. You choose who gets the privilege of your presence. You choose how to respond when someone tries to cross your boundaries. That choice is the definition of control, and it belongs to you alone. The most dangerous thing you can do to toxic people is remove their audience. They perform, they provoke, they manipulate, all for a reaction. When you stop clapping, stop crying, stop defending, stop explaining, they're left alone with themselves. And that's their greatest fear. Because without someone to control, they have to face the emptiness inside them, the insecurity they've been running from. That's why they chase so hard to pull you back in. Not because they love you, but because you are their escape from themselves. Once you see this, you no longer mistake their pursuit as care. You recognize it as desperation. And desperation is not your responsibility. Their healing is not your responsibility. Their insecurities are not your responsibility. Their lack of growth is not your responsibility. For too long, you may have carried the weight of fixing them, helping them, rescuing them. But that's the trap. As long as you're focused on saving them, you're distracted from saving yourself. And when you redirect that energy back to you, everything changes. You grow, you heal, you rise, and the stronger you rise, the smaller their shadow becomes. Strength doesn't mean you won't feel pain. It doesn't mean you won't have moments where their words echo in your mind or where you question if you did the right thing. But strength means you don't let those moments dictate your actions. You acknowledge them, you feel them, but you keep moving forward anyway. That's what control really looks like. Not the absence of fear or doubt, but the refusal to let fear or doubt run your life. Reclaiming your control also gives you back your time. Think about how many hours, days, even years toxic people steal with their chaos. Arguments that go in circles, silent treatments that keep you on edge, manipulations that leave you replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you were wrong. That's time you can never get back. But now you see it differently. Now you realize that every moment you give to them is a moment you take from yourself, and you decide you're done paying that price. You choose to invest your time in what builds you, not in what breaks you. When you make that choice consistently, your life transforms. You start pursuing the goals you once delayed. You start surrounding yourself with people who genuinely support you. You start giving energy to the things that light you up instead of drain you. And slowly, you rebuild a life that reflects who you truly are, not who they tried to convince you to be. That rebuilding is not instant. It takes patience, discipline, and self-belief. But every brick you lay is proof that you've taken your control back. And while you rebuild, you'll notice something else. The voices in your head start to change. For so long, you carried their voice inside you. The criticism, the judgment, the doubts. It became your inner dialogue. But as you reclaim your control, your own voice grows louder. The voice that says, you are capable. The voice that says, you are worthy. The voice that says, you can handle this. That voice was always there. It was just drowned out by their noise. And when it finally becomes the loudest voice, you realize that you were never powerless. You were silenced. But silence doesn't last forever when you choose to speak. The beauty of taking your control back is that it doesn't just change how you deal with toxic people, it changes how you deal with life itself. You stop waiting for permission to pursue your dreams. You stop needing approval to make decisions. You stop fearing rejection because you know rejection doesn't define you. You become grounded in your own authority. And from that place, you approach everything differently. Your relationships, your work, your goals. You no longer ask, can I? You decide, I will. And with that decision comes resilience. Life will still test you. People will still disappoint you. Not everyone you meet will have good intentions. But the difference now is that you won't crumble. You won't hand over your control at the first sign of conflict. You won't compromise your values just to keep the peace. You'll stand steady, even when the storm rages, because you know the one thing you can always control is yourself, and that is enough. As you live from this place of strength, you begin to inspire others. People will notice your boundaries, your confidence, your calm. They'll see how you refuse to be manipulated, how you refuse to settle, how you refuse to live small. And for those who are still caught in the grip of control, our example becomes a lifeline. You may not even realize it, but your courage gives them permission to believe freedom is possible for them too. You become proof that no matter how tight the chains feel, they can be broken. That is the ripple effect of taking your control back. It doesn't just free you, it lights the way for others. And the more people who choose freedom, the less power toxic people have. Because control can only exist where it's allowed. The more we refuse to allow it, the more it disappears. That's how change happens. Not all at once, but one person at a time, choosing their own authority, refusing their own chains. And you are part of that change. This is what toxic people fear the most, that you'll realize your power, claim it, and live it fully. Because when you do, they lose the one thing they crave above all else, control. And once it's gone for good. Because you won't give it back. Not after everything you've learned, not after everything you've survived, not after discovering the strength you never knew you had. And that strength, that unshakable, undeniable strength, is what makes you unstoppable.